Goodbye, darlings, or rather, hello, and welcome to the Goodbye, Darling podcast. Today we're going to be talking about my biggest storytelling pet peeves. I have a whole list here that we're going to dive into as an author, but also as a reader. What really ticks me off when reading books or, absorbing any type of media that is a storytelling medium. So let's go ahead and get into it, shall we?
Hello, darlings, and welcome to the Goodbye, Darling podcast.
We have a new background. You guys might have noticed immediately off the bat if you're watching this rather than just listening. We have a whole new backdrop here today. I basically moved my office from being in a kind of centralized area of my house to a more private area of my house. It is where the guest room was. Now it is a guest room / office to kind of make myself have a little bit more privacy and also allow it to be a little less noisy during recording. So that is a definite bonus that I'm experiencing with having my office in its own room. And I hope you guys enjoy, reaping the rewards of that. It should be higher quality audio. But also, I'm kind of sitting different than I normally do in these episodes. Typically, I'm on my circular, I think it's called a papasan, the big chair, which is still where my old office was, which we might be moving downstairs. I'm not positive yet. I want to figure out where I'm going to use it. But now I'm in my office chair and at my desk, and I haven't filmed something like this for the podcast ever, and so that's really exciting. I used to have an older podcast that was just for patrons that was at my desk, but I don't really count that because it wasn't to the scale that this is. It wasn't on platforms, you can listen to podcasts on. It wasn't on YouTube. It was just on the Patreon, and so kind of feels a little different. But this reminds me more of my vlogging channel, which is really weird, which I talk about writing on my vlogging channel a lot. So it kind of makes sense anyways. But anyways, welcome guys. If you are new to the channel, hi, my name is Izzie Annalisa. I am an author, voice actress, gamer, content creator, kind of hybrid. And I really enjoy storytelling, and that comes in many shapes and forms for me, whether that be storytelling through video games, storytelling through voice acting, storytelling through ASMR, storytelling through writing books, whatever that may be. I've definitely dipped my toe in it and enjoy it quite a bit. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, is storytelling. I've delved into my personal, ways I like to write, I think, over on my vlogging channel, which if you guys don't know, I have a vlogging channel. I link both of my other channels down below in every description. So feel free to go check them out if it's something you'd be interested in. If you do find this episode extra intriguing, if you are a writer, or you really just like learning about writing, or you like talking about critiquing pieces of media, movies, shows, books, whatever it is, video games. I love doing that too. So yeah, I call myself your resident nerdy yapping girl a lot of the time on my vlogging channel, which is very true. I yap a lot, and it's typically about something nerdy. So let's go ahead and get into this episode. We're going to be talking about biggest storytelling pet peeves that I personally have. And just because these are my pet peeves does not mean I've never done these before. I might have done these before. But I was just, writing down on a document, everything I could think of that immediately came to my mind, and will probably end up branching off of it at some point and me going on a tangent about something random that I didn't even write down. But I wrote down, the first things that popped into my mind of when I'm reading a book, watching a movie, watching a show, playing a video game, whatever it is, and I notice these things, it just kind of pulls me out of it. And it kind of breaks my enjoyment up a little bit. I can still enjoy something even if it does these things. If it does one or two of these, it's maybe it has some other really good redeeming quality that just, you know, throws everything else out the window and I'm not worrying about it anymore. But if it does like all of these, it's kind of hard to enjoy, isn't it? So let's go ahead and get into the first point I have here on my monitor. I have a monitor next to me now. This is crazy. I'm used to like glancing at my phone occasionally when I have notes for stuff. Okay, so my first note was when the characters suddenly act different just to move the plot forward. So this one's kind of self-explanatory. I don't really think I need to explain it too in depth, but we're gonna just talk about, you know, how it makes me, as a reader, feel when this happens, but also, you know, exactly what forms this might take. It could be a character having a eureka or like, oh my god, I just figured it out moment. And then them suddenly acting in a way they would never do. That is the way that I feel like it might be done the best, is like a moment that kind of snaps them into acting differently. That's the best way I have seen it done, but typically it's like, okay, the plot's not moving. We gotta figure something out. We gotta do something about this. What are we gonna do? Let's just make one of the characters act like a completely different person for this arc, and then it'll be fine. And then we can get to the next plot point. As an author, it is hard to sometimes navigate those types of situations, and I totally empathize with that. Because like I've even had moments where it's you know, I've had moments where I'm looking at the document I'm writing in, right? And I'm like, ooh, I really have to just get to this next point. And sometimes in my first draft, I'm like, you know, let's just fucking make it work. But when you're, you know, you expect something that then gets published to then in some way, shape, or form, whether that's like published on YouTube or published as like a book getting published or whatever it may be, you expect it to have a little bit of drafting before it gets to that point. That would hopefully alleviate some of that stark contrast in character. You know, the character pre that thing happening, the character post that thing happening, or the character leading up to the event, the character after the event. You know, what is the event that changes your character, and does it happen too quickly? And it's just to move the plot forward, just because they have to change as a character to make the thing happen, to make them go where they need to go. It's something that breaks my immersion personally, because I'm like, that's not how the character would have done that. You know, like I don't know if it's because I'm a theater kid. Shocker, I know. Who would have thunk? I don't know if it's because I was a very big theater kid growing up, or if it's because I'm a voice actor now, or what it might be. But when I absorb media, I really get into the characters' mindsets, and I kind of, you know, when I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm like doing the facial expressions of like whatever character's talking. Or if I'm, you know, watching a movie, I'm like immediately feeling the emotions of what that character is feeling. And that just comes from like good acting and good storytelling, right? Like I feel like anyone feels that to an extent, but especially when you are feeling what the character feels and you're really in the character's mindset and you really are invested in, you know, this character, for them to suddenly just kind of 180 shift into like a different viewpoint or personality, or whatever it may be, without feeling like it had a big enough build up, can feel a little disappointing, to say the least. But, you know, I digress. Let's go ahead and get to our next point. Because we have quite a few points on here, guys. We got a lot of points on here today, so it's like, we gotta move through them. Next point. And I want to hear your guys' points down below, by the way, in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, let me know if you have any, you know, feelings about any of the things that I said, or if you have separate pet peeves that I might not have listed that you feel like are your deal breakers for a book, if there's too many of them. Or there might be like the deal breaker for you. I don't know. I'm pretty low maintenance when it comes to what I what media I take. I can really appreciate a good story, but I can also appreciate a bad one. Like, as long as it's entertaining, sometimes you just gotta put aside the bad writing, and you gotta just enjoy it. Especially when there's good actors in a bad written story. It's like, you kind of are just rooting for the actors at that point. You're like, you're putting your whole pussy into this, and I'm gonna support you at least in this trial we're going through together, apparently. Anyways, my next pet peeve. And this one, I don't know how y'all are gonna feel about it. And it kind of contradicts one later in my list. So, take it with a grain of salt and let me explain. Okay? Let me explain. So, it is when a ship no one likes wins. So when a couple that no one was rooting for gets together with no build-up and no romance, right? I think we saw this a lot in the earlier superhero movies, right? I feel like this happened a lot. I mean, like, the most infamous one I feel like is like, oh god. Names. I can do names. Hold on. What is his name? Oh my god, I feel like such... What's his name? Superman. But not the new Superman. Superman before the Superman. He also plays The Witcher. Okay, hold on. I have a computer next to me. Let's Google this. This is, like, really bothering me because I know his name. Like, I know his name. From Man of Steel 2013. Henry Cavill. That's just disappointing that I didn't remember that. Like, I knew his name. It was the kind of, like, what's his name? Of, like, literally I know it so intensely and I see his face in my head, but for some reason in this moment I can't remember it. So, Henry Cavill, Superman, Man of Steel. It's kind of, infamous. It's kind of shit on that. The romance was kind of thrown in there. Last stitch effort. It didn't really feel like there was any sort of, like, romance scenes or build up or anything, because that's not what the movie was. It was trying to be, a super, kind of grimy take on Superman. It was trying to be like a actiony, super intense actiony vibe. And that's totally chill. But I really didn't, it is a great movie, but I really didn't realize how much that romance being established matters to me until I saw the new Superman that came out this year. The year of our Lord and Savior 2025. Is his name David Cornsweet? Is that his name? The new Superman. I'm just forgetting all the actor names. David Cornsweet. David Cornsweet. Then Nicholas Hoult, of course. Rachel Brosnahan. Love them all. Nathan Fillion's in the show. He's playing movie. Like Green Lantern. That's crazy. I've always heard memes of Nathan Fillion, and I'm so glad that he's like actually in something I've watched now. So I feel like I get the memes more. Anyways, like I just know him from references on Big Mouth. I'm gonna be so honest. But yeah, so I didn't realize how much that mattered to me until recently. And I definitely knew it because, like, guys, I was an AFMAO kid. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. If you know, you know. I was an AFMAO kid. And we all know about Garmao, Lormao, or Airmao, okay? And when Airmao won, and Garmao and Lormao were just thrown to the side. I'm sorry. It felt like the ships that we had been invested in, so basically, for context, for those of you who don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, basically, there is this content creator named AFMAO. She used to do Minecraft roleplays. She does them now again as well, but she's kind of shifted to like kid content, kind of. Nothing but peace and love from me though. But she used to do these Minecraft roleplays where there was a love triangle going on between her, a guy named Lawrence, and a guy named Gareth. Okay, Gareth was like her head guard. This was in Minecraft Diaries. Gareth was her head guard. Lawrence was kind of this like kind of flirt that kind of was like immediately in love with her. And so it was like, okay, the flirt Casanova type, or the like really honorable, like strong gentleman kind of vibe. And so it was like, okay, you want to go for the playa? You want to go for like the nice guy? You know, it was like that kind of vibe. I loved them both. I was a Garmel fan, but I loved Lawrence too. Okay? So, that all being said, then randomly, okay, they threw in a fourth person in this love triangle, a third guy named Aaron. And the reason they threw them in is because they were played by Afmao, the creator, aka Jess, their husband in real life. And so I know what they were trying to go for, okay? I get it, okay? My fiance is also a voice actor, okay, in my stuff. So I get it. It's fun to have them voice your love interest. But we were too far gone. We were 2 seasons in. We were over 100 episodes in. Yes, that's right. Over 100 episodes in. There were 100 episodes per season. We were 2 seasons in. And suddenly, there's a third love interest in the mix. And that's the one who won. So that kind of pisses me off. Now, this is no hate to Afmao. I've healed. I'm a grown woman now. I was a child then, okay? It's not that important. It really isn't. But that is a prime example of what I'm talking about here. When the love interest that everyone wants is suddenly thrown to the side, and this new guy gets the girl, or this new girl gets the girl, or this new guy gets the guy, or whatever it is, okay? It doesn't work well for me. Now, I will say, that being said, it doesn't have to be the first person they have romantic interests with. People break up, people like Vampire Diaries, for example, okay? Stefan, minor Vampire Diaries spoilers, by the way. It's an older show, so if you don't know, you know, but you can skip forward if you'd like. I guess I already gave Afmao spoilers, but I don't know who's going back 7 years in the past and watching an old Minecraft roleplay series for the first time. But if you are, I'm sorry that I spoiled who she ends up with. There's a lot more to that series than just the romance, so, you know, you still got a lot to learn about what happens. I guarantee you. But that's besides the point. What was I saying? What was I saying? I went on a whole Vampire Diaries. Stefan is who we're first introduced as Elena's love interest, right? Elena's the main character. She is the Y/N female protagonist that is getting swept up in the vampire world suddenly, okay? So, she meets Stefan. Stefan and her hit it off, you know, flirty. Then, she meets Damon, okay? Now, I'm Team Damon. Okay, I'm Team Damon. But then later on, I became Damon and Bonnie. I became a Damon and Bonnie shipper. I'm gonna be so real. They kind of were cuter than anyone else. I'm gonna be so real. And like their friendship was really sweet. But I kind of wanted them to get together. But anyways, but it wouldn't have made sense. I get it. Don't roast me, okay? I'm just saying I kind of felt that way about it. Okay? Don't. Okay? I also wanted Caroline and Elena to get together. Okay? Sue me if you're wanting a sapphic vampire fantasy. Oh my god, wait. My book says sapphic enemies to lovers. Vampire story. It's almost like I'm projecting. Anyways, so that is a different circumstance because they introduced Damon really early to be in the mix. And they give Damon and Elena quite the romantic lead up, okay? It's the will they won't they enemies to lovers love triangle, okay? The evil versus the nice brother, and the evil is hot as hell. Listen, the nice is hot too, but the evil, okay, listen. Again, I would rather have Damon with Bonnie and Caroline and Elena together. So, I'm not really invested in Damon and Elena. I'm just saying I think Damon's hot, okay? But that is an example of, like, you can have a new guy come in. He's not even that new. Like they kind of established him as a love triangle love interest really quickly. But let's say they introduced him later on, you can still have a love interest, you know, that's introduced not immediately. That is a secondary love interest. But build them up enough through the romantic scenes that they share with the main character or whoever they're romancing, and then it make sense and it not feel like a ship one that no one wants. You know, as long as someone is rooting for this ship, I'm okay with that. Even if it's not the ship I want, as long as it's not like an overwhelming amount of people are disappointed when this ship gets together, I'm fine with that. But if there's an overwhelming amount of people that are disappointed when the ship gets together, I'm not okay with it. Okay? I'm not okay with it. That would be like me. That would be like me in Internet Crush. Minor spoilers from my Minecraft roleplay. That would be like me in Internet Crush. Making Izumi end up with Zenjin. Like, there were sparks of friendship available, but he also was like kind of a dick. And her and Kenji have such better connection, you know? Like, I think the writer, it's their job to make whatever ship is gonna win seem like the better ship. It doesn't have to be an obvious choice. It doesn't have to be like, oh, literally 99% of the audience likes this ship. It can be a 60-40. It can be a 70-30. As long as a good percentage of people wanted that ship to win. You know? I just need the romantic lead up. That's basically all I'm asking for here. I just need good romantic lead up, even if it's a B plot. Like, Mistborn had such good B plot romance that I will never settle for anything less now. You know? Anyways, especially Era 2. Oh, don't get me started. Anyways, next on my list. When the author gets too technical and doesn't pay enough attention to the story. So what I mean by this is, like, if the author is building this, like, really in-depth world or magic system or whatever it might be, and that becomes the only thing that's good in the world, and the story and the characters are just completely dropped by the wayside, that really just does not sit well with me. I am a characters first, story second, technical things about the world and the magic third. I really, really love a cool world. I really, really love a cool magic system. There's things below that on my list, right? But a connection to the characters comes first for me. Second, the story being good. Then the world, how it works, you know, all that jazz. And that's also very important. But don't let the technicalness of the world make me feel like I'm studying for an exam. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you pick up what I'm putting down? You know? That's what I mean truly at my heart of hearts is, does it distract from the story? Does it distract from the characters moving forward? Just from describing how a school system works in our world, right? Without it being important to the actual characters. I think that's enough said of that. Also, you know, we ranted a long time about the shipping one. That's probably my top one. Anyways. Next. When the author lets the fans change the plot too much. So, this is funny because at the same time, I'm like, you know, don't ship them with someone no one fucking wants them to be with. I'm also like, but don't change your story just because the fan said so. So it's kind of a double standard. It's a little bit of a, you know, but hear me out. Basically, FNAF. Five Nights at Freddy's. Okay? We all know it. I love it, for one. You know, some of us love it. And based on the 3 first games, we had a pretty good idea what might have been going on lore-wise. And I have a theory, a game theory, that we guessed right, and Scott Cawthon didn't want to admit it. And he didn't like that we guessed right, because also we guessed right and we complained about that possibly being the right thing. So like, okay, let me give context. So the dream theory had become the most controversial theory in the community when it was conceptualized is the word I was looking for. When it was conceptualized, it was the most controversial theory, or one of the most. There's probably more controversial theories out there. But because the first 3 games really alluded to it being a dream. You hear an alarm clock in the last game. Like, it really did allude to it being a dream. And Scott swears that it wasn't a dream. It wasn't a dream. But that was only after the fans were outraged that that might have been the ending, is that it was all just a dream. You're telling us it was all just a dream? But you gotta remember, Scott didn't make the first game thinking it would turn into a franchise. He didn't make the first game thinking it would become this super in-depth lore that it had become, right? We have to keep that in mind as theorizers, okay? Good, a little theorizing. We gotta keep that in mind, that he didn't have that in mind, okay? So, it is like you publishing a first draft of a first chapter and then having to base the rest of your story you have yet to write on that first chapter and make sure nothing contradicts and nothing needs to be rewritten in that first chapter. Which is really hard to do. So I'm not saying that what he did was wrong. I'm not saying that he shouldn't have XYZ. I'm just saying that when authors or creators of a story in general, writers, you know, they change the story because the audience doesn't like the theory of what it might be. Like, the audience doesn't like the ending that you're supposedly doing. I don't think changing it and retconning things is the answer. I think, personally, tell the story you want to tell, okay? But take into account when you're writing that story that if you're trying to please your audience, you need to remember what is the most disappointing types of endings in storytelling. One of them is the dream. The fact that it was all a dream is very disappointing for readers a lot of the time. Now, a time it was done really well is in Twilight Breaking Dawn. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alerts for Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2, the movie. Because I haven't read Breaking Dawn Part 2. I haven't read Breaking Dawn the book. I've read the first 2 books of Twilight, and that's it. But I own all 4. They're on my shelf right there. So, spoiler alerts for Breaking Dawn Part 2, okay? Alice can see the future, okay? That whole last fight scene of everyone dying, almost everyone dying, being a vision that she projected to the guy, the villain, Valturin, or whatever whatever they're called, vulture looking asses. That was good. That was really good. That was like the best way to do something like that. Because it wasn't all a dream. Her meeting Edward wasn't all a dream. It was the thing that you're like, holy fuck, like crying to. That was her warning his ass. That even if you fucking tried and you thought you could win, we would still come out on top. Even if we lost so many people, you'd die. So that's a really cool way to do it. So there is a good way to do it if you're doing like a dream thing. But that's besides the point. Don't change your story just because your audience doesn't like the story you made. Now, I say that just for like author integrity, not for success of your story, okay? If you want to own a $1 million franchise that has toys and movies and video games and you live in a mansion because of it, do what Scott Cawthon did, because it obviously worked out for him. But I'm just saying, as a reader, as a absorber of said media, it annoys me. Anyways, next thing on the list. Okay. When the character arc doesn't feel impactful. So, we've all seen a character arc in a show, them going from a shitty person to a good person, then them going from a naive person to a calloused person, them going from a weak person to a strong person, whatever the character arc is, right? Whatever arc they go on during the story. It is beyond disappointing when that character arc happens in a way that makes it feel like it has no impact. So, for example, if it goes too fast, if the characters in the book start to see the character arc and point it out to the reader before the reader notices there's a character arc going on, when the character's internal dialogue, the main character's internal dialogue tells you there's supposed to be a character arc going on, but doesn't show a character arc going on. So, a good example of that is, let's say it's a first-person book, and the person goes, I can feel myself changing for the better. Versus, and it's fine if they say that, but say that after they've showed themselves changing for the better. Let's say at the beginning of the book, they're like a bad person, right? They maybe, like, you show that in the book by them letting a kid get bullied. Maybe, like, they're in, like, high school, and they, like, let a kid get bullied, and they, like, don't stand up for them at all. Because they're like, I got my own shit, right? Show them stand up for the person next time. Show them like bully the bully or something. You know, like, let them do something. Or just something as small as an old lady maybe, like, having to lift something into her car and them running over and helping her. Something as small as that can show the reader that they are becoming a better person without saying, I can feel myself changing for the better, you know? You can still say, I feel myself changing for the better, but that's gotta be after we've been shown they've been changing for the better. But hey, that's me. Hey, that's me. Okay, next one. When the cast feels like they aren't even friends. So when the main characters of the book that are supposed to be friends. So this is saying that you are reading something that they are supposed to be friends in. Because obviously you could be reading something that's, like, morally kind of gray and, like, they actually are awful people, but they all are kind of stuck together, or, like, whatever it may be. But let's say they are supposed to be friends. They are a friend group, okay? When the friends don't feel like friends, it really breaks my immersion. It really breaks my immersion. And it's a hard hurdle to get over once your immersion has been broken like that. The main examples I can think of is, like, when one of the friends is just a really bad person and a bad friend, but they're all just friends with them anyways. That really doesn't make sense to me. Like, if there's a character arc going on and they're learning to be a better person, that's different. They're giving them a second chance or something. But if they are legit, like, they're selfish, they're constantly putting their needs over everyone else's. Like, I love Friends. The show Friends is a good show. I think that the dynamics in Friends are really fun. Also, based on the time period it came out, it's, you know, it is a relic of its time, right? It is very 90s. It is very that era. And so that being said, you can't compare a 21st century sitcom like that to it, right? So the biggest thing that I see, though, is I see certain scenes from Friends that I never thought of in a negative light when I was watching it growing up, because I watched Friends my entire life. Of them being, like, really bad friends to someone in their friend group. And it really makes me feel bad for the friend that is being belittled or, like, shamed or, like, put on the sidelines. Like, there was a specific deal where they think they all missed Thanksgiving at Monica's house or something. Like, they all did something else without her. And she cooked them an entire meal. And I'm like, are y'all even friends? But they show in other episodes that they are friends. But sometimes going to such extremes just for, like, comedic effect doesn't really hit well, especially when the entire purpose of the show is that they're friends, you know? Like, you want the things that are funny to be the fact that, like, you know, no matter what, they're still friends, you know? But, like, you don't want them to feel like, ooh, you deserve better friends, you know? It's just a different vibe. It's not really easy for me to digest. It's not really easy for me to digest. Let me just say that. Let me grab some water real quick. Hold on. Oh my god, that's so much better. But that's my main thing about that. Is like, and I just used Friends as a example because it literally just popped into my head because Friends in the show Friends, it's kind of easy to use that as an example. But there's many examples of this. Like, I remember watching The Carrie Diaries, which is a prequel of Sex and the City, following Carrie Bradshaw when she was like a high school kind of age, into like her early adult years. And there are certain times when I'm like, Jesus, even in Sex and the City, there are certain times where I'm like, y'all ain't even real friends. I'm so sorry. And I do understand, like, having ride or dies, right? Of like friends that'll always be there, even if you're like kind of shitty to them. But in my opinion, my humble opinion, in real life and in media, I would much rather have a situation where the conflict comes from, this is mainly using media terms, right? The conflict comes from outside the friend group, and the friend group helps fix the conflict, right? No one in the friend group is an antagonist. That hurts. Unless it's purposeful, right? Like, I was just reading If We Were Villains. That's a very different circumstance. That is a morally gray, we kind of all got put together kind of friend group. And so that's why I very much put that in a different category. If the friends are supposed to be good friends, it is so disorienting when they don't act like they're good friends. But anyways, our last point. We'll see if I go over time. I am a yapper, so, you know. Our next point. When the magic is just magic, and therefore can do anything, except for the thing to stop the bad guy the easiest. So, let me give you a little example. Let's say we're in a world similar to Harry Potter, where there's like kind of spells for everything, right? Maybe not exactly Harry Potter, but like something even more lax than Harry Potter, where they want a book off the shelf and they go, and the book's in their hand. Like Wizards of Waverly Place ass shit, right? The book is in their hand, okay? You can create spells even, maybe. And then, the one thing you can't do though somehow, is defeat the bad guy. Like, obviously they'll figure out a way to defeat the bad guy, but it's typically through like, some relic they must find, some amulet they must find, some evil, some ancient wizard they must find. The fuck you mean? You got infinite spells, and you can't fucking find one to fucking kill that bitch? I'm sorry. Avada Kedavra his ass. Is it really that hard? He's going on a monologue for like 5 fucking minutes. Can you not fucking kill him when he's not looking? I'm sorry. Like, obviously with Voldemort it's a different circumstance. We have the Horcruxes and everything. Like, that's different. Okay? But I've seen this, especially in like Netflix shows that are kind of like those one-off Netflix shows that were definitely like pitched as just a pilot, and then Netflix went, let's fucking go. We're gonna give you a full season. And then they do a full season and it like ends on a cliffhanger by the end of the first season because they didn't get greenlit for a second one. I feel like this happens a lot in those, and it really is so confusing to me as an author, as a writer, and as a viewer. It's just very alarming to see. I don't understand. Like, I don't understand how someone can be not peeved by that. And like when you're writing it, not understand, ooh, yeah, maybe that might be a bad idea. Like, there's typically like a caveat that is created by the author to make it make sense. Like, oh yes, they can create any spell, but they cannot create this type of spell for this specific reason. Why? But why though? Oh, because 5,000 years ago there was a war and they all said they can't do that type of spell. Okay, but what if you just made it where, like, they can't cast any spell they want to besides that? Because Disney need to tell you what the fuck. Like, I think what works a lot better than that is instead making it like an elemental magic system, or a magic system that is very limited by mana ability or something like that. Just give it like some sort of thing that holds it back, that makes it where it makes sense that you can't do everything and anything with this magic system. Like, there's a specific amount of mana each person has, and they can't do a spell that obviously requires more mana than that. And more mana than that, you know, is, you know, you'd have to do the XYZ to get more mana than that, and it's like a demonic thing, you know? There's ways to make it make more sense. Make it make sense. Make it make sense without it feeling so kind of like, yes, you can do anything except for this one thing you need to do. Fuck off. Anyways, thank you guys so much for joining me this episode. If you want more of this episode, I do extended cuts of the podcast that are basically double the length. I do about 45 minutes on YouTube, 45 minutes on my Patreon, on top of that original 45 minutes. So if you guys like this topic, I'm going to be probably going more into my personal pet peeves while writing things, and kind of things that I've learned as a writer, things I've learned as a reader, because that's also a big thing, is like sometimes you learn a lot from just reading other people's works that are good and bad, right? I've read some really good books and I've taken a lot of notes from that, but I've also read some really bad books and taken a lot of notes from that of what not to do in my own stuff. And good and bad writing is subjective at the end of the day, or yeah, it is subjective at the end of the day, but there are certain things that are like, yeesh, you know, to most people. And there is like bad grammar, bad storytelling does exist. Like, although, you know, the actual prose and the actual way you present your story is subjective, not objective. Objectively, there is such a there is a thing such as there is such a thing as bad storytelling, and there is such a thing as bad grammar, and there is such a thing as bad plotting, and like there are things that you can be bad at, but that doesn't mean you can't get better at them, right? We all are bad at everything before we try it and we learn how to do it, right? And I'm improving every single day, and I am by no means a professional at writing. I just really love writing, and so I'm very passionate about it, and I've been doing it since I was really young. So yeah, when they ask you on your resume if you have like 15 years experience in writing even though you just graduated college, yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. Yeah, that's me. I'm kidding. I'm kidding, by the way. I'm kidding. First of all, I didn't go to college. Second of all, I would say that I actually, you know, I've been writing for a really long time, but I wouldn't count what I did as a kid as, like, that's, like, professional grade shit, you know? But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening or watching this episode of the Goodbye Darling podcast. Make sure to check me out on Instagram at Annalisa. That's IZZIEANNALISA. Also, I have 2 other YouTube channels, if you didn't know. I have a gaming channel named Izumi, which I stream playing video games on, and I also do Minecraft roleplay stuff. And then I also have a vlogging channel named Izzie Annalisa, where I post book stuff, Japan travel stuff, and renovation vlogs. So yeah, go check that out. I also have done the occasional video essays kind of dissecting different stories and different shows and different media, which I really want to get back into. So go enjoy that, and I will see you guys next time.